Hey, what's going on YouTube? So today I'm going to showcase a beginner PVE build for the Magicka Sorcerer, also known as Magsorc, updated for the Firesong DLC patch. This build parses 90k plus on the parse dummy with only using crafted sets. As part of the beginner setup series, I'll be focusing on a starting rotation and gear that are all easily accessible. This build is best suited for those who are interested in starting their group content journey, meaning this is not a leveling guide and assumes that you are CP 160 and have access to crafted gear. For the sake of this theme, to be as new player friendly as possible, the included rotation for many classes will be simplified. The build specializes in normal group content such as trials, dungeons, and group arenas. This build can work in Overland but is not specifically designed for it. Furthermore, I'll be going over some ideas and tips to further progress yourself into mid and end game. Although hybrid builds are some of the strongest builds right now, I'll be focusing on a more traditional setup that either focuses on Magicka or stamina. Keep in mind that this is a baseline build and there are many viable gear sets and combinations, so it ultimately depends on what you would like to do. With that being said, here we go. So starting off in the character sheet, I have 64 points in a Magicka and I'm running the Thief Mundus. For the race, we're a high elf. I think high elves have some of the best passives for Magicka DPS. For the food, we have a few different options, but Clockwork Sister's Filet is probably going to be our go-to for anything hard. A cheaper and almost just a good alternative would be Witch Mother's Potent Brew. And lastly, if you're parsing or just flat out need more sustain and don't mind having a little bit less health, Ghastly Eyeball is always the go-to. For the potions, we're just going to be using standard Essence of Spell Power. This is because we're missing the buffs that it would give us. These are Major Sorcery, Major Prophecy, and Major Intellect. Keep in mind that these potions do cost a bit to make or buy, so make sure you have 3 points in a medicinal use from the alchemy skill line to ensure that you get the full benefit of the potions. So for CP, for the blue tree, we're going to be running Master at Arms, Deadly Aim, Wrathful Strikes, and Backstabber. If you can't flank the enemy, swap out Backstabber for Fighting Finesse. For the red tree, we're going to be running Siphoning Spells, Rejuvenation, Fortified, and Boundless Vitality. So for the gear, we're going to be running 5 pieces of Julianos paired with 5 pieces of Order's Wrath and 2-piece Night Mother. So breaking it down in the main hand, we have a Nirnhone Dagger of Julianos with a flame damage enchant, and the offhand charge with a poison damage enchant. For the back bar, we have an infused Inferno Staff of Julianos with an increased weapon and spell damage enchant. For the head and shoulders, we're running 2 pieces of Night Mother, 1 in light and 1 in medium, both traded in divines with max mag enchants. This is so that we get the 2-piece crit chance bonus. For the rest of the body, we have 5 pieces of Order's Wrath, all crafted in light, traded in divines with max mag enchants. And for the jewelry, 3 pieces of Julianos jewelry, all traded in Bloodthirsty with spell damage enchants. For the skills on the front bar, we're going to be running Daedric Prey, Crystal Fragments, Mage's Wrath, Volatile Familiar, Twilight Tormentor, and Dawnbreaker. On the back bar, Barbed Trap, Blockade of Fire, Hurricane, Volatile Familiar, Twilight Tormentor, and Greater Storm Atronach. So for the rotation, we're going to be casting our back bar dots and then swapping to our front bar and casting Daedric Prey and Crystal Fragments until our back bar dots expire. So breaking it down, we're going to be starting off with a Barbed Trap into a Blockade of Fire, Hurricane, Volatile Familiar, Bar Swap, Crystal Fragments, and then Daedric Prey. And then 5 Crystal Fragments, Daedric Prey, 5 Crystal Fragments, Daedric Prey, and then rinse and repeat. So at 20%, instead of using Crystal Frags, you can use Mage's Wrath, but still use your procced Crystal Frags. And then Twilight Tormentor and Flawless Dawnbreaker are just there for the passive bonus. And then whenever your ultimate Greater Storm Atronach is ready, you could just replace one of your Crystal Fragments, or you could just add it into the rotation. It's not a big deal. For closing thoughts, first up, if you don't want to use daggers, you can always swap to an Inferno Staff. You'll do a little bit less damage, but you'll be able to stay at range. So just some class specific things. You can drop your Twilight Tormentor and go Matriarch for a really strong heal. You can also run Crit Surge, which will give you a ton of passive healing. You can drop one of your skills on your back bar. I'd say if I had to pick, Hurricane would probably be the go-to. Or what you could do is you could drop your Volatile Familiar and run Crit Surge and another skill that you may need. And lastly, if you don't want to go into melee range and you're running Barbed Trap, you can go Channel of Acceleration. It does last a really long duration and you're not going to lose too much DPS. So just very quickly, some gear alternatives: Whirl of Depths, Bosse, Sororia, Pillar Nirn, Berserking Warrior. You can only use weapons and jewelry for that one. And Order's Wrath are all still good sets. Ideally, you'd want one set with Minor Slayer on them so you can benefit from the passive damage boost you get. For Mythics, Mora's Whisper, Sea Serpent's Coil, Harpooner's Waiting Kilt, and Death Dealer are all still valid choices. And if you want to just run a monster set, Maul the Inferno, Kiarnar, Stormfist, and Zon are probably the top sets right now. And depending on how you're going to set up your gear sets, you can also opt to use a Maelstrom Inferno backbar. It is still viable. And here's a sample setup with a very generic build that'll perform very well. On the body, we have Whirl of Depths. On the front bar and jewelry, we have Pillar and Urn. And we can either choose to run a monster set or a mythic and a one-piece slime crawl. And on the back bar, we could just run a Maelstrom Inferno staff on the back bar. And that wraps up the build explanation section of this portion. As always, thank you for watching my video. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them in the comment section down below, or better yet, come join our Discord. Link is in the description. As a reminder, if this video helped in any way, please help the channel grow by subscribing and liking the video. I will also have a written guide in the description for those who would prefer that. And lastly, I've also started a channel membership for those who like to go the extra step to help support me so I can focus on more content creation. And as always, feel free to stick around for the attached parse. If not, have a good day and see you in the next one.